It was a rousing romantic comedy.
Oh, do you feel the breeze from the subway?
One that provided a revealing look at America's #1 sex goddess.
I can feel the goose pimples.
But the white-hot sexuality of Marilyn Monroe scorched the censors
Would you mind fastening my straps in the back?
and touched off a blaze of controversy that sent the actress's personal life into a devastating tailspin.
Sorry, I have to go.
A behind-the-scenes glimpse at Hollywood's most sizzling sex farce.
Hi.
And a rare look at the censored footage they said was too hot for the big screen.
Don't stop. Don't ever stop.
On Backstory, The 7-Year Itch.
And now that I have your attention, I want to warn all you girls and women of New York about an evil, dangerous, perfectly dreadful married man who lives downstairs in my building.
The 7-Year Itch blew the lid off 1950s conservatism.
Hey, wait a minute!
It shocked audiences with its irreverent look at marital infidelity.
I mean, I wouldn't be lying on the floor in the middle of the night in some man's apartment drinking champagne if he wasn't married.
And showcased Marilyn Monroe in her most sexually suggestive role to date. The film was based on George Axelrod's popular 1952 Broadway play about a married man who has an affair with his attractive upstairs neighbor. Hollywood couldn't wait to cash in on the smash hit. But in the 1950s, movies did not enjoy the artistic freedom that live theater had always taken for granted. Any film produced in Hollywood was subject to the scrutiny of the all-powerful Hays Office.
Well, the Hays Office was the self-censorship body that the Hollywood studios created when they were very fearful that the government was going to step in and create a much more onerous form of censorship.
The vulgar, the cheap, and the tawdry is out. There is no room on the screen at any time for pictures which offend against common decency, and these the industry will not allow.
The censors proclaimed that any film based on the 7-Year Itch would be a blatant violation of the production code, which stated that adultery must never be the subject of comedy or laughter. Hollywood studios quickly backed off from the provocative play.
It is surreal that this went on. This kind of a minority opinion could affect the whole course of the movie business, and everybody was so terrified. The studios were terrified of these people.
But for Academy Award-winning writer-director Billy Wilder, The 7-Year Itch was not only a great film waiting to be made, it was also an irresistible challenge waiting to be met. Wilder had miraculously managed to sidestep the rigid rules of censorship many times in the past, making films with controversial themes like seduction, adultery, and alcoholism, and he wasted no time in approaching George Axelrod about purchasing the rights to his play.
Billy Wilder was my hero. I remember the phone rang in my apartment one night, and Billy Wilder from Hollywood, it's like having a call from God, you know.
Axelrod insisted that no film version be made until the play had completed its Broadway run. But with Wilder on board, The 7-Year Itch once again became a hot property in Hollywood. Among the contenders bidding on the project was 20th Century Fox, which had a leg up on its competition, in the form of a 28-year-old sex goddess named Marilyn Monroe.
In retrospect, although the 50s is clearly a time of very real political repression and social and sexual repression, you can see those early signs of changing values, and Monroe was clearly part of that.
She sang of love just as she lived for love, like a Lorelei, flaunting her charms as she lured men on and on to their eternal destruction.
Marilyn's film career skyrocketed with such hits as Niagara, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, and How to Marry a Millionaire. In 1953, a nude photo of the actress appeared on the first issue of Playboy magazine and sent shockwaves across the nation.
I don't think there's any question but what the success and the popularity of Marilyn Monroe is directly related to her more obvious sexuality and the very fact that she did pose nude and then admit it and make jokes about it. Say that she had nothing on but the radio. And by the end of the year, she was the biggest star in Hollywood.
After Fox secured the film rights to The 7-Year Itch, attention then turned to the casting of Marilyn's enviable co-star. But because the part of Richard Sherman was that of the quintessential everyman, the the filmmakers rejected Gary Cooper and other suave, classically handsome leading men. They were looking for someone plain, average, and not necessarily handsome. They were also looking for someone with a comedic touch. Enter Walter Matthau, a rubber-faced actor whom Axelrod had spotted playing a small role in a Broadway play.
The old nostalgia. Never misses. Never misses? What am I trying to do? I'll call her up and I'll tell her not to come, that's all. Why ask for trouble? I don't know her number. I don't even know her name.
After seeing Mathau's performance in the part, Billy Wilder believed he had found his man. But 20th Century Fox was unwilling to take the risk on a newcomer, and Wilder next turned his sights on the actor who had originated the role on Broadway, Tom Ewell.
Absolutely ridiculous. The first night Helen leaves and I'm bringing dames into the apartment.
Wilder knew that casting this ordinary-looking actor opposite Marilyn Monroe would turn the 7-Year Itch into the ultimate male fantasy. The studio agreed, and Tom Ewell won the role. But what the filmmakers didn't count on was the wrath of the Hayes office, which was eager to pounce on the production. Wilder and Axelrod had taken all explicit references to adultery out of their script, but they had hoped to merely hint at an extramarital affair in a short scene where a maid finds a hairpin in Ewell's bed. Studio head Darryl Zanuck and producer Charles Feldman adamantly refused the idea, fearing a code rejection. The exasperated Wilder complained that the movie was made under straight-jacketed conditions.
The picture, was very simply, it's about a guy who has an affair with a girl when his wife is away for the summer. And then he feels terribly guilty for it, and the guilts are very funny. But if he hasn't had the affair with the girl, he's got nothing to feel guilty about, so the picture doesn't really make very much sense.
The Hayes office demanded that much of Axelrod's most entertaining dialogue be removed from the script as well.
George Axelrod is a great writer of sexual comedy lines. It is very troubling, I think, to most filmmakers who want to adapt a humorous play from Broadway to Hollywood to find that the funniest lines and the funniest moments are being just ripped away by a censorship board.
We were hamstrung because of the censorship. He swapped them 2 darns for a damn. You never allowed to say son of a bitch. I fought for son of a bitch. Couldn't have it.
Oh, the hell with that. The goddamn false teller.
We did as much as we could, but boy, I tell you, they were really stringent.
Increasingly frustrated, the disheartened filmmakers feared that their once lively sex comedy was losing its sizzle. But what the censors underestimated was the cinematic genius of Billy Wilder and the pulse-pounding potency of Marilyn Monroe on the big screen.
Getting married? That'd be worse than living at the club. Then I'd have to start getting in by 1 o'clock again.
Very true, you probably would. At least occasionally.
When the 7-Year Itch began filming in September of 1954, Marilyn Monroe was no longer just Hollywood's greatest sex symbol. She was the world's most famous newlywed.
The romance that thrilled the world. The marriage of Marilyn Monroe and Joe DiMaggio attracts a record crowd to the San Francisco court where the ceremony is performed.
Her marriage to baseball legend Joe DiMaggio earlier that year had set off a media firestorm.
Nice work, Marilyn. And the same to you, Joe.
Fox publicists fanned the flames by alerting the press of the star's every move, and the Hollywood gossip machine turned its spotlight on the filming of The 7-Year Itch.
People like Marilyn Monroe are always threats to the moralists in the establishment who are trying to protect their fellow man against an excess of passion.
How would you like to come down here and have a drink with me? Maybe.
Why, thanks. I'd love it.
You would?
Sure, it'd be fun. Let me just go put something on. I'll go into the kitchen and get dressed.
The kitchen?
Yes, when it's hot like this, you know what I do? I keep my undies in the icebox.
In the icebox?
See you in a minute.
Oh, my God.
The Hayes office was also keeping a watchful eye over the production. And if that weren't enough, the filmmakers also had another mighty group of moralists breathing down their necks, the Catholic Legion of Decency.
The power they had rested in the fact that at Sunday Mass they could tell millions of Catholics that on pain of undermining their soul, they must not go to the movies that the Legion was condemning.
Priests representing the Legion of Decency hovered around the set with copies of the provocative script in hand.